The Bank of Canada has finally reduced its interest rate down to 4.75, the first time we've seen an interest rate decrease in over 4 years. You can see that it decreased to about June levels of last year, and we are expected to slowly decrease going into the new year, but we have to follow some of the numbers like inflation and what happens with the housing market. If the housing market continues to go up at a dramatic rate across the country, like expected here, then I would imagine interest rates are going to slowly decrease, and it's not going to be that fast of a decrease. The CMHC forecasts existing home prices will surge 20% higher. Now, this is Canada-wide. I would imagine that the apartment market and the townhouse market will lead the charge in the country, in Calgary, if we start to decrease this interest rate at a faster rate. There's so many people moving here, and there's a lot of people soaking up our product. Now, apartment prices in Calgary have reached $340,000. Technically, from last month's report, this is $5,000 less. And this is why I always preach, look at the attributes. I've been talking about this for years. So the attributes are these here. I'm going to shift this up a little bit moving forward. But if we look at what has changed, you can see that the apartments for City of Calgary have actually gotten smaller, but they've gotten newer. And yet it's a $5,000 decrease from last month. So a newer apartment costs less. Interesting. So let's start to dive into this. Now, I do want to say that I will record a video explaining the attribute differences and diving into it a little deeper in a whole separate video. It's going to be just geared towards attribute changes. But my name's Adam Fyfe, your Calgary Realtor. As things change, we are going to continue to do the research. We're going to dive down the rabbit holes. We're going to learn what the Calgary Real Estate Board is doing on the back end and try to stay educated and on top of things as this market continues to shift and grow. If you have any questions, go ahead, reach out, set up a call with me. I'm easy to talk to. If you want to know what your home is valued at, you can use this link here, the instant home evaluation. It's pretty cool stuff. So let's get into this. If you want to read this on your own, go ahead, pause the video, skip to the next chapter. I'm not going to be offended. Demand for affordable homes continue to drive growth for apartment-style condominium homes. May sales continue to rise, contributing to a year-to-date record high of 19% gain. This was partly possible thanks to the gains in new listings, preventing further drop in inventory levels. While inventory levels are similar to last year, gains for products over $300,000 offset the steep declines for lower-priced homes. With a month's of supply of just over 1 month, conditions still favor the seller, and prices continue to increase compared to last month's and last year's level. Year-over-year price gains exceeded 30% in the Northeast and East District, with the lowest price gains occurring in the city center and at 13%. What a mumbo-jumbo of words there. So let's figure out what is going on across the city. So this chart's great. You can see the red line here is the price point, the benchmark price. This has been retroactive with the new attributes. So this chart's the pricing is going to be slightly different. Obviously, they can't have a decrease from last month, so they have to retroactively change the attributes from years past. You can see that the inventory is steadily increasing. We're at last year's levels here at about 1,100 homes left over at the end of the month in the entire city, which is still quite low for as big of a city as Calgary. You can see that the sales are somewhat leveling off in a sense. We're at around 900 sales here. The gap is getting a little bit bigger, which is a welcoming news for some people. Obviously, sellers want their properties to increase as much as possible, but at the same time, we don't want them to increase too quick because we don't want to become a Toronto, Vancouver. And I know that's going to frustrate a lot of investors out there because all the investors want to make $1 million, but let's think about the average citizen. So this number here is the exact same information, but for in a numerical fashion. You can see that we've got the sales, the new listings, the inventory, the days on market. We're still at 22 to 23 days, so that really hasn't changed. So on average, it's taking around 22 days to waive those conditions and consider that sold. You can see the benchmark price is $340, $5,000 gain from last month. The median price is actually decreased, so the middle sale is actually decreased from last month, and the average price is actually decreased from last month as well. So last month it was almost at $360. This month it's below $350, meaning that more of the affordable homes sold in May than it did in April. But the benchmark price, or the price for the attributes, is actually increased to $340, a $5,000 increase from last month. So overall, it's great to see. I think this is pretty average stuff. It's great to see new listings continue. It is good to see the inventory uptick a little bit going into the spring market. I would imagine that there was a lot of people waiting for this rate rate announcement to be had so that they can go ahead and now get into the market. So I don't think the inventory is going to increase too much going into June, but that also is weather dependent. We'll see what happens now that the spring is here. A lot more people might be listing their property, and more or less more people will probably getting into the market because they know and understand what's going on with the rates going into June. So total sales in Calgary year to date, we're up. This is total sales including all property types. You can see that we've actually increased from last year, which is great to see. You can see that we've actually have more sales compared to last year, especially when you look at this 850 and 908. So very similar to last year, but it is an increase nonetheless. You can see that sale by property type. You can see that the city center apartments have seen all of the sales, where South Calgary is still quite active. You see Northwest, West, and Southeast all having 80 to 70 sales, and then it starts to deplete from there. Now, this is where I'm going to start to have more concentration because it's going to be interesting to see what happens with the inventory levels in the apartment sector. Year to date, we've actually never seen as many listings go up for sale on the resale market. This is not including new construction unless that builder puts on one listing. If they put on one listing, they could sell 10 homes behind the scene, but it's still one listing. So that's important to remember. It is really good to see more options come to the market. Hopefully it slows down price growth a little bit, but I don't think it's going to slow it down that much. With that being said, this is the inventory for the entire city. You can see that we're roughly within that same level as what we were last year, starting to flatten out a little bit. So hopefully we don't go any lower than this. We kind of stay at this level, which is still going to see a lot of price growth in this market because we are around that 1 month of supply. So with that being said, this is the price points. So typically I cut this up in post, but I'm recording this all in one shot, and this is what you get. So this is all of the apartment prices. So you can see everything is obviously the lowest and the most affordable in Calgary, but we have to remember that there are attributes, okay? There are attributes that are put into play into each individual quadrant, and it is very important to remember those attributes. So if we go to this here, and I go to apartments, you can see that, let's actually just jump right over to this one. So you can see that when I zoom out here, there's been quite a bit of changes, right? So you can see that if all of the bolds, so even in North Calgary went from 2008 to 2011, it actually increased 5 square feet. This went from 2012 to 13, yada, yada, yada. So if you are curious about the price points in Calgary, it's very important that you put the attributes over the benchmark price, because I will be making a video where I have a flat average across the city, and I'm going to make my own price points for each individual quadrants on an upcoming video that I'm going to talk about the changes of the attributes. I'm going to try to level the playing field. It's going to be a very interesting project to try to go down. So with that being said, this is the year-over-year price growth. So the apartment sector has seen some of the largest increases in the entire city, mainly because they're the most affordable. A lot of people are soaking up our apartments. So with that being said, if you are curious about what your home is valued at, thank you so much. We've had a lot of people use this AI software. It's really cool. It's pretty accurate for apartments. You put in your address, it'll spit you out an instantaneous home evaluation. It sends you an email really quickly. It's me and me only who looks at this. If you are wanting to get some help, then we can set you up. If you're just looking to kick some tires, that's totally fine, but go ahead and utilize this tool if you trust us. So thank you very much. Now, this chart here is a little bit different than what we are used to seeing. Usually I put some numerical values on the right hand side here, but it just didn't really work out this month just because they changed the attributes and we do it manually. So I didn't want to go through with all the percentages, so we're going to leave it for this month. So we've got the sales to the new listings, the sales to new listings ratio. You can see again just the amount of homes left over in city center, 644. Literally over half of the entire city is stuck in city center, which is very, very common. Everything else is kind of hovering around that. Let's just call it 70-ish properties, going all the way down to 19 in East Calgary, but you can see these numbers are quite small either way. You got the months of supply, which is a really good indicator of how fast the market's moving. So you can see a lot of homes are actually under 1 month of supply. You've got your north, your northwest, you've got your south, your southeast, and east, all under 1 month, meaning that it's a very tight, very fast market. Yes, your home will sell quick, but you still want to make sure that you're going in at a competitive price. There have been numerous times this year alone that people will think we can get $1 million for the property, property, and it just doesn't quite work like that, right? You want to make sure that you're competitive. You want to look at surrounding buildings. You want to look at amenities those buildings offer and make sure that you're pricing accordingly. You do not want to be stuck on the market and go from there. A lot of people say, oh, it's 20 days on market, my home's going to sell in 20 days. It could sell in 5. But at the same time, you still want to make sure that you're pricing intelligently, and you don't want to make sure that you're listing too high and being stuck on the market and then chasing the market. That is the most frustrating thing to do. So you've got your benchmark prices here. So this is for each individual quadrant. Again, look at your attributes. You've got your year-over-year price growth. You can see a lot of things are over 20%. You've got your month-over-month. You got your month-over-month, which is still quite a bit. Some under 1%, but at the same time, I think a lot of people were waiting for that rate hold. So we'll see what happens next month. And then this one is quite fascinating. So you can see this chart here over the last, let's just call it 6 to 7 months, everything has been around that 15% year-over-year gain for apartments. So we did have a peak year-over-year, let's call it December. It kind of slowed down going into April. May, June, it's basically flatlined. So we're still seeing year-over-year increases of 15% in the apartment market as a whole. You can see that the average price fell rapidly, and then the median price also dropped. But from what we remember, the benchmark price still increased that dramatic amount. So it's very fascinating to see all of these 3 stats in one. Now, with that being said, you can just see this massive roller coaster ride of apartments. It has not slowed down at all. We had a little blip there, and then it's just continued to shake off. So if you have any questions and you want to know where the apartments are going, it is very important to note your individual quadrant, your individual building, your individual community. And then from there, you can make a game plan as to what you can expect going into the future. And if you want to know more details about this, we've got the Pillar 9 here. What I do for a lot of my clients is that we'll go onto the Pillar 9 together. We'll look at all of the solds in the past whatever days. We'll look at your specific building, and then we're just going to look at the attributes, right? So you got a Mount Royal 1912 1-in-1 sold for $349 in 2 days, right? This is right now listed by days on market, but we can change up all of these different things here and actually look at how this will affect your home sale. So you can see there's still quite a bit of homes that took 70, 80, 90, over 100 days to sell. So if you have any questions and you want to go over these things and you want to actually create a game plan, it is very important to do this well in advance. So thank you very much for everyone who stuck it through. We'll see you on the next one. Peace.